You are terrified right now because it feels like God is deliberately ignoring your prayers. But He isn't ignoring you. He is actively protecting you. Because if He handed you that blessing today, the sheer weight of it would crush you to death. It is the dead of night in a hostile, freezing mountain valley, and an elite special forces team is completely pinned down. They are surrounded, outgunned, and taking heavy, relentless fire from the ridges above. Their ammunition is critically low. Several men are wounded. The situation has bypassed critical and entered the realm of absolute desperation. The ground commander grabs the radio and screams the coordinates for an immediate emergency extraction. He calls for the Black Hawk helicopter to drop into the valley and pull them out before they are completely overrun. Miles away, the extraction chopper is already in the air. It is heavily armored, fully fueled, and moving at top speed toward the coordinates. But right as the helicopter approaches the edge of the valley, right when the men on the ground can actually hear the faint mechanical thumping of the rotor blades echoing off the canyon walls, the chopper suddenly stops. It pulls up, it banks hard to the left, and it begins to fly in a wide, agonizing holding pattern 3 miles away. Down in the dirt, the ground commander is losing his mind. He is screaming into the radio, begging the pilot to descend. He is watching his men bleed. He is watching the enemy close in. From his extremely limited ground-level perspective, the pilot is deliberately ignoring his cries for help. It feels like absolute, devastating betrayal. He thinks the pilot is a coward, or worse, that Central Command has simply decided to abandon them in the dark. But the ground commander cannot see what the pilot sees. Up in the cockpit, the pilot's threat detection instruments are screaming. The sensors have locked onto an invisible infrared laser cutting through the darkness. Hidden in the rocks, just 50 yards from the extraction point, an enemy anti-aircraft team has a heat-seeking missile pointed directly at the landing zone. The pilot is not ignoring the cries of the wounded men. The pilot is looking at a piece of data that the men on the ground do not have. He knows with absolute mathematical certainty that if he answers their prayer right now, if he drops that helicopter into the valley to save them, the missile will lock onto the engine heat. The chopper will be blown out of the sky, the rescue crew will be incinerated, and the massive burning wreckage of the helicopter will crash directly on top of the men it was sent to save. The pilot is not delaying the rescue to punish the soldiers. He is delaying the rescue because he is actively neutralizing the anti-aircraft team before he descends. The delay is the only thing keeping the men on the ground alive. This is exactly what is happening in your spiritual life right now. You are completely pinned down. You are looking at your bank account, you are looking at your isolated circumstances, and you are taking heavy fire. You are exhausted, frustrated, and running out of time. You have been screaming into the spiritual radio, begging God to drop the blessing into your valley. You are asking for the promotion, the financial breakthrough, the spouse, or the massive expansion of your platform. And you can hear the rotors. You see other people getting the exact blessing you are praying for. You know God has the power to do it. But every single time you think the breakthrough is about to land, the door slams in your face. The opportunity evaporates. The timeline gets pushed back again. You think God is ignoring you. You think you did something wrong to disqualify yourself from the promise, or that heaven has simply abandoned you in the dark. But you are operating from a ground-level perspective. You cannot see the anti-aircraft missile waiting for you in your future. God is not ignoring you. He is evaluating your structural integrity. There is a very dangerous misunderstanding in modern faith. We treat the blessings of God like lottery tickets. We think that if God just handed us the money, the massive platform, the perfect relationship, or the immense influence, all of our problems would instantly vanish and our lives would become easy. But the spiritual reality is the exact opposite. Every massive blessing introduces a terrifying new level of pressure. A larger platform means a larger target on your back. Greater financial resources mean a highly coordinated demonic attack on your integrity, your discipline, and your hidden greed. A restored relationship means you can no longer be selfish, and every unhealed piece of trauma in your soul will be dragged to the surface and exposed to blinding light. God is looking at the current version of your character, and He knows that you have not been on the anvil long enough to survive the pressure of your own prayer. If He dropped the helicopter right now, your hidden pride would turn you into a tyrant. If He handed you the money today, your lack of spiritual discipline would lead you into absolute ruin. If He gave you the platform right now, your desperate, unhealed addiction to human approval would cause you to compromise your message and lose your soul. He is deliberately delaying the answer because He loves you too much to let the blessing kill you. God is not punishing you. He is putting you on the anvil. You are not sitting in a peaceful waiting room, you are in the forge. Every time a door closes in your life right now, that is the massive hammer striking the metal. Every time a friend walks away and leaves you in total isolation, that is the heat of the forge burning away your desperate need for validation. Every time you have to watch someone else succeed while you are forced to wait in the dark, that is the fire burning away your jealousy, your ego, and your impatience. It hurts. It is agonizing. It feels like God is tearing your life apart and ignoring your tears. But He is compacting your character. He is making you dense. He is forging a level of spiritual titanium inside your chest so that when He finally opens the door, when He finally drops the massive, life-altering destiny He has written for your timeline, you will not implode under the weight of it. You have to stop begging God to rush the timeline. You have to stop screaming into the radio for a premature rescue. If you pull yourself off the anvil before the metal is fully cured, the sheer pressure of your future will crush you to death. Stay on the anvil. Let the hammer fall. The delay is not your destruction, it is your armor. Think back to that ground commander in the freezing mud, watching the Black Hawk helicopter circle endlessly in the dark. If you could freeze time in that exact moment and interview that soldier, his reality would be entirely dictated by his pain. He is bleeding, he is cold, he is terrified. Every single piece of sensory data his brain is processing is telling him that he has been abandoned. He is staring at the sky, watching his salvation orbit just out of reach, and he is coming to the heartbreaking, logical conclusion that the pilot simply does not care enough to drop into the fire and save him. But his logic is violently flawed because it is built on incomplete data. The soldier is confusing delay with denial. He is confusing tactical patience with abandonment. This is the exact psychological warfare you are enduring right now. You are in the dirt, taking heavy fire, and you are exhausted. You have watched your primary source of security vanish into thin air. You woke up one morning and the algorithm of your life had completely changed. The revenue stream you relied on was suddenly severed. The provisions were demonetized. The metrics you used to measure your success plummeted overnight, leaving you staring at a dashboard of failure, feeling an absolute suffocating panic because the resources were stripped away without any logical warning. You are screaming into the radio. You are begging the pilot to drop the blessing, to restore the income, to open the door, and to rescue you from the humiliation of this valley. And God is responding with absolute, deafening silence. But you have to understand the tactical nature of heavenly silence. When God goes quiet, He is not ignoring you. Silence is the sound of the forge. Silence is the sound of the pilot locking onto the hidden missiles in your future and systematically dismantling them before they can blow you out of the sky. If God gave you the financial breakthrough right now, while you are still deeply infected with a scarcity mindset, you would become a slave to the money instead of a steward of it. If God handed you the massive, viral platform you have been begging for, while you are still secretly addicted to human approval, the criticism of strangers would mentally destroy you within a month. The pilot is circling, the master surgeon is operating, God is sitting in the editing bay of your soul, looking at the raw, unpolished footage of your character. He is aggressively scrubbing through your timeline, making brutal, precise cuts. He is splicing out the toxic relationships you were too afraid to leave. He is stripping away your false security blankets, cutting out the dead weight and meticulously rendering out your spirit in the dark so that the final export is indestructible. You hate the editing process because it feels like you are losing pieces of yourself. You hate it when friends walk away. You hate the crushing isolation of working in the dark while it feels like everyone else is succeeding in the light. But God is not trying to build a temporary, fragile tent in your life. He is designing a permanent, legacy-defining homestead. If you are going to develop a specific plot of land, say a precise 50 by 100 foot space, you cannot just blindly start throwing down timber and hoping it holds up against the storm. You have to draft the spatial blueprints first. You have to survey the boundaries. You have to bring in heavy machinery to tear open the earth and excavate the soil. You have to pour concrete into the dark, hidden places where no one will ever see it. The taller the structure is destined to be, the deeper the foundation has to be dug. Right now, you are complaining about the massive hole God is digging in your life. You are looking at the dirt, the mess, and the absolute chaos of your current circumstances, and you think the master architect has made a catastrophic mistake. But he hasn't. The depth of your current suffering is the exact measurement of the height of your future calling. God is digging deep into your character because the structure he is preparing to build on top of you is incredibly heavy. If he built your massive destiny on top of your current fragile emotional state, the entire building would collapse the moment the first storm hit. Because the stakes are simply too high for you to remain fragile. There is a little girl, almost 2 years old, looking up at you right now, implicitly trusting you to be a fortress of stability. That child is not looking for a parent who is constantly spiraling into panic attacks every time the wind blows. That child needs a protector whose spine has been forged in the fire. If God gives you the massive platform, the wealth, and the influence before your character is fully forged, your unhealed trauma will inevitably bleed onto the very people you are trying to protect. You will project your insecurities onto your family. You will use your newfound power to crush the people who disagree with you. God refuses to let your destiny destroy your family. Let's go back to the freezing valley. Let's look at the holding pattern. The Black Hawk pilot is 3 miles away, banking hard in the dark. He is staring at the thermal imaging screen, watching the heat signature of the enemy missile system hidden in the rocks. The pilot has a decision to make. He can listen to the frantic, emotional screaming of the commander on the radio. He can succumb to the pressure, drop altitude, and fly directly into the ambush just to make the screaming stop. If he does that, the soldier gets exactly what he prayed for about 10 seconds. The soldier sees the helicopter, feels a rush of relief, and thinks he is saved. And then the sky explodes. The missile hits the fuel tank. The machine plummets out of the sky in a ball of fire, instantly killing the flight crew and crushing the men on the ground under 10,000 pounds of burning metal. God will never, ever answer a prayer that will end in your destruction, no matter how loudly you scream into the radio. The master pilot operates on divine intelligence, not human emotion. He is willing to let you sit in the mud and complain about the cold. He is willing to let you cry, scream, and question his goodness. He is completely willing to endure your temporary anger because he knows that a temporary season of frustration is the required price for your permanent survival. When you pray for a massive expansion of your territory, you are simultaneously praying for an upgrade in your warfare. You cannot fight giant-level demons with shepherd boy faith. Look at Moses. Moses knew he was called to deliver the Israelites from Egypt. He had the passion, he had the royal education, and he had the physical strength. So, at 40 years old, Moses tried to step into his calling prematurely. He relied on his own human effort, killed an Egyptian taskmaster, and buried him in the sand. What was the result? Total catastrophe. He didn't save the nation, he became a fugitive. Moses had the right calling, but the wrong character. He was arrogant, he was impulsive. If God had handed Moses the leadership of 2 million Israelites at that exact moment, Moses would have led them straight into a slaughter. So, what did the master pilot do? He put Moses in a holding pattern. He left him in the desert for 40 years. Can you imagine the psychological agony of that delay? Moses went from being a prince in the most powerful empire on earth to babysitting a flock of sheep in the middle of nowhere. Decade after decade, he watched his life slip away. From a human perspective, he was a massive, humiliating failure. But God was not wasting time. God was forging a prophet on the anvil of isolation. In the crushing silence of the desert, God was burning away the Egyptian arrogance. He was stripping away Moses' reliance on human leverage. He was making him dense. He was compacting his spirit. By the time Moses finally stood in front of the burning bush at 80 years old, the impulsive, arrogant murderer was completely gone. In his place stood the meekest, most spiritually indestructible man on the face of the earth. He no longer needed a sword. He only needed a wooden staff and the spoken word of God to bring the greatest empire in history to its knees. The 40 years of delay was not a punishment. It was the absolute prerequisite for the parting of the Red Sea. You have to look at your current season of isolation through this lens. You are in the desert of Midian right now. You are watching the sheep. You are doing the boring, repetitive, unglamorous work that nobody on the internet will ever applaud. You are painstakingly drafting the blueprints for a vision that only you can see. You are quietly healing your nervous system. You are breaking the toxic generational curses that have haunted your bloodline. It feels like you are doing absolutely nothing. It feels like the helicopter is never going to descend. But God is watching every single stroke of the hammer. He is watching you carefully tend to the fragile things He has placed in your care. He is watching how you nurture the small, vulnerable beginnings. Whether it is raising a 2-year-old child, tending to a tiny 2-week-old chick in the yard, or protecting a fragile idea that has just hatched in your mind, He is testing your stewardship in the dark. If you cannot be trusted to protect a single, fragile life when nobody is watching, why would God trust you with a global platform? If you cannot handle the emotional pressure of a demonetized channel without completely losing your faith, how on earth are you going to handle the demonic warfare that comes with a massive calling? The anvil is not your enemy. The anvil is your greatest tactical advantage. Every single time the hammer falls, you are becoming harder to kill. Every time you are forced to wait, your spiritual root system is digging deeper into the bedrock. You are losing your taste for cheap dopamine, and you are developing a ravenous appetite for the presence of God. You are being forged into a lethal weapon. So I need you to mentally go back into that freezing valley. I need you to look up at the dark sky. The Black Hawk is still circling. The noise of the rotors is thumping in your chest. The enemy fire is still raining down on your position. But this time, I want you to change your posture. Stop screaming into the radio. Stop begging for an early extraction. I want you to dig your boots into the mud. I want you to check your armor. I want you to look out into the darkness and realize that the delay is actively working in your favor. The pilot is currently painting the target. He has a lock on the missile system that was designed to destroy your family, your finances, and your legacy. He is about to pull the trigger. The silence is almost over. The holding pattern is coming to an end. The metal is fully cured. The titanium hull is sealed. Brace yourself. The helicopter is preparing to descend. Let me tell you exactly what happens the moment the delay is finally lifted. We all romanticize the end of the waiting season. We think that when God finally says, yes, when the massive iron doors of opportunity finally blow open, we are going to step into a peaceful meadow, sit down under a tree, and finally breathe a sigh of relief. We think the answered prayer is a finish line. We think it is the end of our struggle. It is not a finish line. It is a starting gun. When that Black Hawk helicopter finally drops out of the sky and touches down in the freezing mud of your valley, it does not land so you can take a vacation. It lands in an absolute hurricane of dust, deafening noise, and flying debris. The side doors kick open, the extraction crew grabs you by the vest, and they scream at you to move. You are instantly thrust out of a holding pattern and violently inserted into a high-speed, high-stakes tactical maneuver. The waiting is over, but the actual work has just begun. You have to completely reframe your theology of the blessing. You have been praying for God to hand you a massive expansion of territory. You want the influence. You want the promise. But raw territory requires ruthless logistics. If God hands you a plot of land, even just a completely empty space of pure, uncultivated dirt, you do not just get to stand there and admire it. You have to break the earth. You have to haul the timber. You have to map the electrical lines, lay the plumbing, and secure the perimeter. You have to organize the supply chain of your own energy, your finances, and your daily schedule. A massive blessing is a massive logistical operation. It requires a level of organizational economics that the previous version of you simply did not possess. This is why the anvil was so painfully necessary. If God had given you this territory 2 years ago, when you were still disorganized, emotionally volatile, and easily offended by the slightest criticism, the sheer administrative weight of the blessing would have crushed your mind. You would have mismanaged the sudden influx of resources. You would have sabotaged the critical relationships required to build the infrastructure. You would have squandered the capital because you did not have the internal structural scaffolding to hold a blessing of that magnitude together. The delay was God's supply chain management. He was withholding the inventory until you had built a warehouse strong enough to store it. Look back at the history of ancient human survival. If you study how early humans survived the brutal, unforgiving winters of the Paleolithic era, you will notice a fascinating, undeniable pattern. The tribes that survived were not the ones who spent the winter complaining about the ice. The tribes that survived used the darkest, most freezing months of the year to actively prepare for the spring. While they were trapped in the caves, isolated from the world by blinding blizzards, they didn't just sit in the dark and wait to die. They were aggressively sharpening their flint. They were carving new spear shafts. They were repairing their furs, curing their meat, and meticulously organizing their meager supplies. They used the brutal delay of winter to forge their weapons. So when the ice finally thawed, when the spring finally broke and the massive herds of game returned to the valley, they didn't have to scramble to get ready. They didn't have to figure out how to hunt. They just stepped out of the cave and completely dominated the landscape. You have been in a brutal, extended winter. The progress in your life froze over. The momentum stalled completely. The people you thought would support your vision disappeared into the snow, leaving you to fend for yourself. But you did not freeze to death. You used the dark. While everyone else was distracted by cheap dopamine and digital noise, you were in the cave, sharpening the flint. You were learning the systems, you were studying the blueprints, you were figuring out the workflows, optimizing your strategy, and desperately trying to crack the code of your own potential. You were sitting at the anvil, letting the hammer fall, meticulously forging a massive, indestructible vision for your future. Do you realize how dangerous you are about to be? Most people break when the momentum stops. Most people quit when their primary source of validation is ripped away. They fold up their operation and go back to a safe, miserable existence. But God allowed your safety nets to be cut so you would discover that you don't actually need them to survive. He allowed you to operate in the absolute dark so that your spiritual eyes would adjust to the reality of your calling. You used to see your life superficially. No depth, no shadows, just basic outlines. But the fire of the forge has given you profound depth. The heat has burned away the superficial layers and given you incredible density. But here is the critical warning. This is the moment where most people sabotage the entire operation. Do not jump off the anvil in the final 60 seconds of the forging process. Right now, the enemy is panicking. The demonic forces assigned to monitor your progress are looking at the spiritual radar, and they can see the Black Hawk helicopter inbound. They know the holding pattern is ending. They know that God is about to unleash you into the territory you have been preparing for all these years. And because they cannot stop the helicopter from landing, their only remaining strategy is to convince you to abandon the landing zone right before it arrives. They are going to send you the ultimate spirit of exhaustion. They are going to whisper in your ear that it is too late. They are going to point to your age, your bank account, and your current circumstances, and they will try to logic you into giving up. They want you to throw down the blueprints. They want you to walk away from the homestead. They want you to pack up your bags and walk out of the valley 30 seconds before the rescue operation goes live. You cannot let them win. You have endured way too much pain to forfeit the harvest now. You have taken too many hits to walk off the battlefield in the final quarter. I know you are tired. I know the isolation has been absolutely deafening. I know what it feels like to look at the people who completely depend on you and feel the terrifying, crushing weight of responsibility, wondering if you are ever going to be able to give them the life you promised. I know the silent anxiety that keeps you awake at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, wondering if God has completely forgotten your address. He has not forgotten your address. He has been laying the concrete under it. He has been reinforcing the foundation so that when the weight of the legacy drops onto your shoulders, it will not crush your family.
Now, let's pray. Father, I am coming to you right now, not as a commander, not as a warrior, but as a completely exhausted child. I am sitting in the freezing mud of this valley, and I am finally putting down my radio. I am done screaming at the sky. I am done begging for an early extraction, and I am done trying to force the timeline of my life to bend to my own terrifying anxiety. Lord, I am so utterly tired. The isolation of this season has nearly broken me. I have spent so many nights staring at the ceiling in the pitch black, feeling the crushing weight of the silence, wondering if my prayers were just bouncing off the roof. I have watched the algorithms of my life freeze over. I have watched the momentum die. I have watched the revenue streams vanish, the doors slam shut, and the safety nets get cut right out from under me. But right now, In the quiet of this desolate place, I am making a conscious, deliberate choice to trust the master pilot. I surrender my desperate need for control. I surrender the metrics, the analytics, and the dashboard of human validation. I ask you to forgive me for the times I questioned your goodness just because I could not see your strategy. Forgive me for treating you like a transactional machine. Forgive me for wanting the massive blessing while completely refusing the massive accountability that comes with it. Father, thank you for the anvil. It hurt. It was absolute agony. But as I look back at the fire of the forge, I finally understand what you were doing. Thank you for not answering my prayers 2 years ago. Thank you for actively blocking the opportunities I begged you for, because I know now that my character would not have survived the weight of them. Thank you for loving me too much to let my unhealed trauma become a weapon against my own family. Lord, I look at my little 2-year-old child. I look at that innocent, beautiful life sleeping quietly in the next room, completely oblivious to the chaos of the world, implicitly trusting me to be their protector. God, I know the stakes are too high for me to remain fragile. I know I cannot afford to be a victim anymore. I refuse to pass down the panic, the scarcity, and the generational anxiety that has haunted my bloodline for decades. Let the toxic cycles of my family history die on the anvil today. Let the fire burn away every ounce of my pride, my insecurity, and my desperate need for human approval. I thank you for the absolute darkness of this cave, because in the dark, you taught me how to sharpen my flint. You taught me how to forge my weapons when no one was watching. You stripped away my reliance on a digital algorithm, and you taught me how to rely entirely on the unbreakable, infallible word of the Creator. You took away my fragile wooden scaffolding, and you poured thousands of pounds of spiritual concrete deep into the trenches of my soul. I declare today that the titanium hull is sealed. I declare that the metal has been cured in the fire. The deep water submersible of my mind has been fully pressurized by the Holy Spirit. I am no longer terrified of the deep water, because you have made me dense enough to survive the pressure. And Father, as I sit here in the mud, looking up at the sky, I can finally hear the rotors. I hear the heavy thumping sound of the Black Hawk descending into my valley. I know the holding pattern is over. I know you have neutralized the anti-aircraft missiles the enemy placed in my future. I know you have painted the targets, dismantled the traps, and cleared the airspace. You did not delay my rescue to punish me. You delayed it to ensure that when I finally touched down in the promised land, I would take the territory and never, ever lose it. Lord, give me the logistical wisdom for this new territory. Do not let me romanticize the blessing. As the doors of the helicopter kick open, give me the sheer physical and spiritual stamina to execute the mission. Give me the emotional intelligence to manage the massive influx of resources, the grace to handle the pressure, and the absolute humility to never forget that it was your hammer, your fire, and your forge that made me who I am. I am ready for the deployment. I am ready to break the earth. I am ready to build a permanent, legacy-defining homestead that will provide shelter for my family, for my 2-year-old child, and for generations that I will never even live to see. The winter is over. The silence has broken. The waiting is finished. I step off the anvil today, not as a terrified victim of my circumstances, but as a lethal, highly forged instrument of your divine will. I trust your timing. I trust your editing bay. I trust the Master Architect with every single frame of my future. I ask all of this in the mighty, matchless, and indestructible name of Jesus. Amen.